Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, I'm going to be covering my Rising Heat openings. So, looking at Rising Heat's board, it is a 0, 2, 1. That means it's not placing presence on Reclaim. It has a 2 presence place option, and it has a third option that places presence, energy, and power cards. And unfortunately, Rising Heat's G3 is a bit too strong. We're going to try to abuse this growth option because it's doing so much for the spirits. Now, looking at our power cards here, if I play these 4 uniques and I have 5 plays, you'll notice that I'm missing my last 2 tiers of my innate. But if I have a single earth element, then boom, I get both of those tiers. So while we're drafting cards, we're going to be looking to draft that 1 earth element card. Now, all we need to do is find a single earth card, and if we have 4 drafts of cards, the odds of finding that 1 earth is a 98% chance. So there's a very high likelihood of finding that earth draft. In addition, we're also going to be looking for 0 cost cards, and that is because our energy economy is going to be very constrained with our 1 energy and our reclaim. So 0 cost cards, defensive cards, these are cards that we're going to be looking for with Rising Heat. Now, looking at the first opening, I have the standard G3 build. And this build is going to start off with G3. So on turn 1, we're going to G3. Turn 2, we're going to G3. Turn 3, we're going to G3. Of course, all placing presence from bottom track. And finally, turn 4, we're going to G1 reclaim. Now, you might be seeing these big question marks, and that means is the cards that we're playing these turns, it's going to vary, and it's going to vary based on the adversary, the what explorers came up, and stuff like that. So it's really going to depend. And same thing with hitting these innates. We're not trying to hit these innates early on. If it happens, it happens, but that's not our goal. Now you're going to notice this innate here, the second threshold, has 3 fire, which means the only way we can hit this threshold is we either need to get that top fire in 2 plays, or we need to have 3 plays. And accessing these innates earlier, or the earliest way to access these innates is moving down bottom track. So that's what we're going to do with these, with our growth options. So the cards I'm playing, it's a question mark. A lot of times I'll either play Call on Herders turn 1. Sometimes I'll pair up Searing Heat and Exhaustion. Sometimes I'll play Herders plus my Miner. Like I said, it's just going to depend. Now on turn 3, you might try to access this 3 fire and 2 earth. The easiest way to do that is by playing Herders plus Stinging Sandstorm plus any 0 cost fire. So these cards on turn 3 allows you to hit these innates here. Now, one of the things that I like about this innate is you get to use up all of your card plays. So we have 5 cards here. We have 2 card plays. We put 2 cards here. Once again, we gain another card. We put 2 cards. And then we gain another card. And now we play 3 cards. So we put 2, 2, and 3. And that's going to equal 7 cards. So that's all of the cards we have, and we're able to play all of them. And that's one of the reasons why I like this build. In addition, drafting cards on Rising Heat is so important to the success of the Spirit. Not only drafting cards to hit the innate, but also, like I said, those defensive cards, those support cards, very, very powerful. Now, there is a modified G3 bottom build, and this build is trying to get majors, and sometimes instead of grabbing a minor here, the players will grab a major instead. And I don't really like this build. You do have the energy to play it. Like I said, you'll have 6 energy on this turn too. So you have it 3, 6, and then 9 energy. So you have plenty of energy to play the major going bottom track, but it's difficult to sustain that major. Now, if you can draft a powerful 2 cost major, you're going to be pretty happy. Once you get to 3 and 4 costs, you might have some issues. Okay, so the standard G3 build, this is it here. Now on turn 3, there is a standard G3 with a pivot G2, which is the second opening I'm going to talk about, and that is here. So once again, you're going to start off G3, then G3, and then you're going to G2. So some of the negatives to this build is you're going to be generating less energy, you're gaining less cards, and you're also going to have extra cards that you can't play. So you're going to be underplaying on this turn. Some of the benefits, it's all going to come down to that turn 4 on your reclaim. So while on turn 4 with this top version, you're only going to have 3 plays. With this bottom version, you're going to have 4 plays, which is going to open up more possibilities of hitting that innate, as well as being able to play more cards to impact the board. So you have a weaker turn 3, you have a stronger turn 4, and a stronger turn 5, because now you can access the 5 plays 1 turn earlier and hit that max innate. So one of the benefits of doing this this G3 hybrid G2 build. I don't know which build is better. I've had success with both builds. I think pivoting to this G2 bottom is going to, once again, largely depend on the board state, on the cards you've drafted, the adversary, stuff like that. And it's very important I point this out before I continue with the openings. All of these openings are assuming I'm not taking Gift of Searing Heat on myself. Now, Gift of Searing Heat says target spirit gains 2 energy, and you have to target another spirit. But if you're playing solo, this card could be used on yourself to give you +2 energy. And when you do that, it kind of just breaks the spirit in half. It's like Many Minds when you take Bedevil on yourself. You just have this massive defend everywhere, and it gets rid of a lot of the puzzle. So these builds, well, like all of my spirit guides, are assuming the spirit is being played in a multiplayer setting. So once again, you're not taking Gift of Searing Heat for yourself, you're giving it out. Now the next build here is the fast tempo build. You're going to notice once again, we're starting off with G3, and we're going to go G3 Presence for Minor Track. Now this build changes because now we're playing cards, and what we play is going to depend on what we're drafting. So if we get a 0-cost fire, so the odds of us getting a 0-cost fire on this turn is a 48% chance. So there's a very high chance that we can find that 0-cost fire. Now, if we miss, that's okay too. But if we get that 0-cost fire, this is what I like playing. Sweltering Exhaustion, as well as Searing Heat. So I'm giving out that support to the team, and then I'm going to skip a build. So it's essentially skipping a Ravage cycle. Now, not all the time am I doing this. Like maybe if my land 2 against Scotland came up, I might not do this build, but this is just kind of what I'm doing, or what I'm trying to push. And the whole point of a fast tempo build is I want to hit the invaders as much as I can, as early as I can. So by playing these 2 fire air cards, I'm going to hit that first tier of my innate, so I'll be able to stop a build in the slow. Now then, on turn 2, you're going to notice something looks different. We're playing G2 instead of G3. And we're going to go G2 bottom, and we'll be playing Call on Herders, Stinging Sandstorm, and ideally a fire air card, because then we would hit both tiers. But if I just play a fire card, then I'll hit this second tier. So the point of this build is to have a very powerful turn 2, because you'll have a disruption, you'll have 2 damage in your sacred site, or I guess adjacent to a sacred site, but in that sacred site it's going to do a ton of damage, killing lots of buildings, plus more damage, and then another Flex Disruption card. Now this is assuming you draft a 0-cost fire card. And if it's a fire air, then you get the top part here. Now let's say you miss. Let's say you miss on the fire altogether. Well, at this case, I would still look to draft a 0-cost card. I'd play that Searing Heat turn 1, plus the Miner being able to support the team. And then on turn 2, you could play Exhaustion, skipping a Ravage, plus the other 2 cards. And because this has that fire air, you're going to be hitting both tiers of this innate. Once again, the whole point of this build is you want to hit this top tier here, as well as these 2 tiers, or just this tier here. And you want to impact the board as much as you can, disrupt the invaders as much as you can. Now, the best thing about this build is, well, there's a lot of things that's great about this build. But what I really like about it is because you're drafting that card here off the Miner, because you're starting with that G3, you can diversify. You don't have to play the fast tempo build from the start of the game. You can play the G3 standard build based on your draft. Maybe you miss on that fire card, and you might say, you want to know what? I'm not even going to play this bottom line here. I'm just going to play the standard G3 build. And that's what I love about this, this fast tempo build. You're not locked in early on like you are with some of the other spirits and their fast tempo builds, like Many Minds, right, where you have to G3 and it disrupts all of your G2 patterns. So that's one of the reasons why I like this build. Another reason why I like this build is you're giving out Searing Heat on turn 1, And then on turn 3, you're reclaiming. So you'll be able to give it out again on turn 3. So you're able to give out Searing Heat, that's your support card, a lot more frequently with this build. So you have that upside. And I probably should have mentioned, yes, your turn 3, you are reclaiming. So turn 1, you G3, turn 2, you G2, and turn 3, you are going to G1 and reclaim. Now, some of the negatives are you're reclaiming a turn early. So the other builds, you're going to reclaim on turn 4. This build, you're not. And since you're reclaiming early, it means you're going to be reclaiming more often, which means your turns that you get the innate, they might be delayed. So just keep that in mind. You might max out that innate. Maybe it's going to be on turn 6. Of course, it could still be early like turn 5. It's going to depend on your miners that you draft and just the board state. But just know that you're going to be reclaiming more often. So that could be, you'll be placing less presence as a result. This build has been growing on me. I primarily did just the straight G3 bottom build, and I've had great success. But I started using this build, and it's been pretty effective, especially against France, right? Where like you're stopping a build turn 1, you're then getting this kill 2 explorers into slow. So you just stop a build again, or stop a future build cycle, and then on turn 2 here, you have so much disruption, more disruption. You just completely obliterate France. And I don't think I've done this build against France in my current France videos, but I think if I were to, I think I'd have pretty good success. Now the fourth and final build I'm going to be talking about is Heat's early major build with a G2 top flex. Now once again, you see me starting off with that G3. And I think this is a good point to talk about why I'm starting with G3. Well, I've actually already talked about it. And that's just, it allows you to jump into any of the different builds. There are some players that are advocating for starting with the G2 top build, followed by a G3 bottom build for majors. And I don't like this, mainly because you lose out on all of that flexibility that you get with the G3 starting builds. You lose out on the knowledge of your draft. Like having that draft knowledge on turn 1 and building a plan is huge. So when you delay it a turn, it sucks, or it just feels worse. The upside to doing this build, the G2 top versus G3 bottom, is you gain 1 extra energy than the build I'm about to talk about up top. But having that draft knowledge and the ability to pivot into the other builds is why I recommend doing the top build up here. So this is just pointing out one of the other builds that I've been told to take a look at. So the early major G3 build, we're going to G3 bottom, and then this is where I'm going to G2 top. And this is mainly to give us access to a more consistent energy source of 2 energy a turn. And then on turn 3, we're going to G3 here, and this is where we're going to get that major. And the cards that we're playing on turn 1 and turn 2, they're going to be question marks. It's going to be depending on your draft, what you're trying to do. You might be playing herders on turn 1. Maybe on turn 2, you're playing your skip plus your energy boon, something like that. It's going to depend. And then when you get your major, you're going to forget one of your cards. I really don't know what card to forget. I tend to not do major builds with Rising Heat because this, once again, this innate is like a major power. I think if I were to get a major, so your worst card is Stinging Sandstorm, but it's your perfect element card. So it feels pretty bad to forget this card. Call on Herders is your best major synergy card, so I don't think you can forget this. You know what? It's probably Stinging Sandstorm. And it's kind of crazy to say it, but it also might be Sweltering Exhaustion. It actually might be this card the more and more I think about it. And I mean, it sucks getting rid of your skip, but it is a 2 energy card. And being able to sustain a major that costs 3 to 4 energy, plus your skip might be too, you might be too constrained on energy to do that. I'm not too sure. I don't really do this build that much, but something to think about. So yeah, this is our turn 3, and then turn 4, we could either choose to reclaim, getting that major back again, or drafting another major, or we can choose to just G3, going bottom track, having a 2-3, drafting either another minor, another major, whatever you need, and then you'd have a turn 5 reclaim, so you'd have 1 turn delayed on the reclaim, but you'd be at 2-3. You'd be in a pretty strong position, and then you can pivot going 3 fire or to the 4 or 5 plays. So this is the early major build. if you pivot with a G2 top track. I've already talked about why I don't like starting with the G2 top. There's one other major build version that I mentioned, I think earlier in the video, and that's you turn 1, you G3, and then turn 2, you can G3 again, and you can grab a major on turn 2 with the G3 instead of waiting until turn 3. The upside is you get access to that major earlier. The downside is you're going to have a much smaller energy economy in the game compared to the build up here. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video.